on Christmas Eve. I'm going to be trying to, get the kids. We're trying to get ready for Christmas Eve. I'm going to be distracted by Cowboys Dolphins here at that time. Wish they didn't have any good games in the 4 o'clock window so we can enjoy Christmas Eve. But this will be a fun one here. Cowboys coming off their dud against the Bills. Miami's favored by 1.5 here at home. There's a lot going up against each other here. Dolphins in this question about them beating good teams. The Cowboys, they may have answered the question about beating good teams by beating Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, but it was at home. Now, can they win on the road?
Well, now Philly might not be good.
So. Now Philly might not actually be that good, so does it even count? So two teams that we've compared in the past, right? Dallas and Miami, two teams that can beat up on lesser teams and, want to see them win those big games.
Yeah, it's like the can you beat a good team bowl. I think the most interesting thing is, like, the concerning thing for Dallas last week was not that they lost against a good team, was the manner in which it happened. It's like they have the best pass rush in the NFL that can take over games and force you into mistakes by, their incredible Micah Parsons, et cetera, but also, like, when you put the ball in the air quickly to get rid of the ball because Micah Parsons is coming, you've got Deron Bland there waiting to take it back for 6, right? So they have this entire defense that's set up to destroy you if you have to pass the ball. And Buffalo just went, okay, we just won't pass ever. We'll just run it right down your throat and win because of that. Miami has this, they have a powerful running attack, albeit in a very different way. Does Miami look at that and say, whatever about Tyreek Hill, whatever about Jalen Waddle, we're just going to run the ball because apparently that's the way to beat this team. And if we have a good play action pass off the back of that, sure, we'll take it. But we are going to pivot to be more of a run heavy offense because we just saw that's the blueprint to beat you. Or was that a one game thing, right? Was that Dallas's defense has been better against the run this season, albeit still a weakness relative to their pass rush. Are they able to shore that up this week and force Miami to be a more balanced offense where they actually have a better chance?
Yeah, it is a fascinating matchup. I know the Jonathan Hankins being out for the Cowboys was thought to be a big deal. He's 330 pounds in the middle, and yards per carry wise, it's about a yard difference when he's on and off the field. We've talked a lot about splits being noisy, and maybe they are, but it might have an effect for Dallas, in part because the backup's Mazi Smith, and Mazi Smith was struggling anchoring against double teams in the preseason. And was again against the Bills, right? So we know that Dallas for years has had issues in certain games where they just get run over. The Rams did it a few years ago. I mean, it's just been a multi-year issue to the point where we were sitting here on draft night, all jacked up on whatever steroid they gave me that day, talking about Dallas for the first time has said, never again from a run defense standpoint. We're going defensive tackle in the first round. And again happened in week 15 against the Bills. I think the Dolphins are equipped. It's a different type of running attack, though. Yeah. So here's the deal. It wasn't just the Hankins thing and the upfront stuff. When James Cook got into the secondary, they didn't tackle him. They did not. And so that's what the Dolphins do. They don't win up front and beat you up front a ton. They get Raheem Mostert into space. They get the Devin Achans in space. They get their receivers in space. The Cowboys need to tackle in space, or they're going to get run over again by Miami. And one other thing I just want to add really quick. And then the passing attack is quick. So Tua is so quick with getting rid of the ball. If Micah Parsons has a bunch of quick wins like he did last week, it might not matter because the ball's out of Tua's hands.
Right.
And so the Dolphins have the two things offensively that I think can beat this Cowboys defense.
But the other thing about their run attack, Miami's, is they're going to move you laterally. So It's not just a case of like get a big body in the middle and have him anchor against double teams. It's like you have to be able to defend the run horizontally and side to side and in space. And that I actually don't know if that's a good thing for Dallas or not. If that helps them because they're not like the weakness is not just necessarily softness right up the gut. But like people haven't been able to slow down this Miami rushing attack that well across the board.
The one other thing I want to add, so from a Dallas perspective, we know a team that I've been raving about Dan Quinn and their ability to always force turnovers and always kind of create those game-changing plays. They usually do it against lesser teams. Tua will give you one or two opportunities a game to make a play. And Dallas historically does not pass those up on defense. Even last week, Tua goes 21 for 24 against the Jets. One of his incompletions was just late on an out route or left behind on an out route, and it was a dropped interception that could have gone 70 yards. If Tua does that, I mean, his turnover-worthy play rate's 3.3%. That's about middle of the pack this year. Even last year when Tua played great, it was over 4. That's high. Tua's playing great this year. His big-time throw rate's through the roof. We know what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are able to add to that offense, and Tua's doing an awesome job at anticipating and getting the ball down the field. But there's 1, 2, 3 plays a game where Tua just kind of double clutches, just misreads it, whatever it is. He'll give you 1 or 2 probably opportunities to make those plays. Sometimes he puts it on the turf too. He's had a few fumbles this year. That's been Dallas's game these last few seasons, is forcing those turnovers. They have to take advantage of those plays when Tagovailoa gives it to you.
I was just trying to run some quick numbers to see what Dallas's defense has done against generally wide runs. So I just quick and dirty, like point of attack, anything off tackle or wider.
Did you go tackle, left end, right end?
And
right
end
tackle,
around
left
stuff,
end?
Yeah. So it's not the cleanest thing in the world, but it's a broad, broad strokes approach to
I like
it.
it though. I like it on the fly.
Yeah.
Like this. Yeah.
They're not terrible, but they're below average in both, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's explosive run percentage allowed, whether it's yards per attempt allowed, whether it's yards per attempt before contact allowed, they're not bad, but they're not good either. They're below average across the board, and they're going up against one of the best teams in the league at doing that.
On the other side of the ball, so by the way, Tyreek Hill, I don't think he practiced yesterday, but that was expected. He's a veteran. You can't really read into the Wednesday practice,
right?
For veterans. I'm guessing Tyreek's going to go. He was questionable last week and was supposedly going to be a game time decision, but I think he'll probably go. Mm-hmm. But this is another game where there's a lot of dudes questionable. Both running backs for the Dolphins, Xavier Howard, Javon Holland. But on the other side of the ball, Dallas's offense here. Zach Martin left the game due to injury last week. Him and Tyron Smith, both questionable right now. Tyron Smith with a back, Zach Martin with a thigh, against a Miami defense that's been very good over these last few weeks. Pass rush coming alive. Bradley Chubb playing really well. Andrew Van Ginkel. And they've been a different defense since Jalen Ramsey has come back. Again, how much of that is the quarterbacks they've played and how much of that is just, turning a corner defensively. But I think that side of the ball is going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, the other element of that, you look at the Bills-Dallas game, like getting run over all the way through by Buffalo was obviously a big problem and a big concern. I mean, Dak played terribly for the first time in a long time. Like, the other side of the ball was completely non-functional as well.
Dak having, if you take away his 3 worst games, like, here's the deal, right? You can't take him away, but just to add perspective. Because the perspective is like, what do you think you've seen this year? If you take away Dak's 3 worst games, it's literally one of the best quarterback seasons of the PFF era since 2006, right? I mean, so what we've seen outside of a 3-game sample is a guy that is just on. Decision-making has been great. Accuracy has been fantastic. He's made plays inside of structure, outside of structure. He's been outstanding. Now, you can't take those 3 games out. I'm just trying to paint this picture of, like, what have you seen from Dak for the majority of the season? We've seen elite quarterback play. What have you seen in 3 different games? You've seen a sub-50 PFF grade, 48.9 against the Cardinals, 46 against the 49ers, 39 last week against Buffalo.
Yeah.
2 out of those 3 games, of course, against 2 of the best teams that they've played
Well,
and in big games. So that's a big question mark here.
That's the thing. It's like he's had an MVP caliber season and then 3 bad games. And the 3 bad games have come against Buffalo when they played really well and are therefore one of the best teams in the NFL. Against San Francisco, who look like the best team in the NFL and have a very good defense. And then Arizona, which was like the one inexplicable game where Dallas lost for no good reason whatsoever, other than, in part, Dak Prescott played like crap, right? It's like, well, I don't know what that means. Other than to say, if Dak Prescott plays badly, they have no shot. Like, the offense, as much as it's kind of set up for Dak to succeed with, good offensive line, good skill position players, everything, if he doesn't, they're screwed.
Yeah. It is fascinating that when Dak doesn't play well, the whole team doesn't seem to play well.
Right.
Right? Like, they got destroyed against the Niners. Defense didn't play well against the Cardinals. Like, it is a full team thing. The one game where I think Dak played better than the rest of the team was probably the Philly loss in Philadelphia. And there's also been games where Dak was, pretty good, and the defense played great. And remember, early in the year, Prescott didn't have to do much at all prior to the bye. So it's just an interesting dynamic here. So I think the one thing about the McCarthy era, I've said this about the Bengals a bunch, they've had these very disappointing games. Niners earlier this year, last year, the last week of the season against Washington, these not even inexplicable, but just laid an absolute egg. Terrible.
Rodgers always used to do that as well. Like the Rodgers-McCarthy partnership, you would get these games where Aaron Rodgers in his MVP seasons would play like crap. And
he did that with LaFleur too.
Yeah.
He did that with LaFleur. I mean, I don't know if that was just a Rodgers thing. But I tend to give that credit to the head coach when a team is terrible and then comes back the next week and plays well, and it looks completely different. And Dallas has a history of doing that under Mike McCarthy. They have a history of bouncing back. So last year it was the last game of the season. They lose to Washington. Dak was horrible, and they come back in the wild card round, and the offense was pristine against the Bucs, almost perfect against the Bucs, and they just kept missing extra points. So I think Dallas bounces back here. I think they'll play better. My concern is the defensive side of the ball against Miami. So I think we'll see a great game. I don't think we'll see another one-sided game where Dallas gets whooped. It's rare that happens 2 games in a row. I don't even know if it has in recent years. Miami by 1.5. Where are you going to go with this one?
I will go Miami.
All right, I'm going to take Dallas coming back here. As far as leverage goes here, Miami and Baltimore are the leaders in the clubhouse for the number 1 overall seed, but Miami has to play Dallas this week, then Baltimore, and then Buffalo, right? So there's a lot on the line here for the Dolphins, for the Ravens, for that number 1 seed, and on the outside looking in are the Chiefs, who still have a shot at that number 1 seed because they have an easier schedule, and the Dolphins and Ravens are all gonna play each other and play these tough games and beat each other up, and there's still a chance that the Chiefs are gonna sneak back in and grab that bye here.
Yeah, Timo's article doesn't have seeding leverage on the line, but he does have currently that the Ravens are 69% favorites to have that number 1 seed. Obviously, that changes dramatically if they lose and Miami wins.
Yes, for sure. So a lot on the line here.